waiting for Magnus's first move in this game. Nakamura and Karyakin already finished their game with a draw. Wow, that's fast. And finally we start here.
Yes, finally we start, and we have seen a King's Pawn opening. Magnus, this is back to his well-known stuff. This is what he normally does in classical games, in his most serious games in World Championship matches. Magnus Carlsen going back to what he knows best. We saw him freestyle, experiment a bit in earlier rounds, but here we see the Spanish opening, and a version of the Spanish that we called the delayed Spanish exchange. So we do see that bishop for knight capture that white just made. We call that the Spanish exchange, but normally it happens a bit earlier. So here we call it the delayed Spanish exchange. And this signals the fact that Magnus Carlsen, he's going for a long strategic maneuvering game. He wants to keep maximum tension. The pawn structure now for black, you do have doubled pawns, and that means it's more difficult to open up the position. So black has the two bishops against white's knight, but if you can't open up the position, then the bishops don't really thrive. So it will be Magnus trying to keep things closed, maybe trying to attack a bit later on. This last move by white tends to show quite an aggressive streak. White actually is very flexible as well. White can decide to castle on both sides of the board depending on what black does. So a bit of a waiting game right now. David Anton just moving his queen forward, protecting a black pawn in the middle of the board, but also hinting at the fact that the black king might shuffle across and castle long, castle to that queen side. Yeah, very tense right now. It's all about plans. No immediate tactics, no checks, captures, threats, exchanges, any of that stuff. It's just about maneuvering, and Magnus just pushing a pawn there. Very calm play.
Yeah, you see on the bottom of the screen that two games, so one game finished with a draw, two games haven't started yet. So Levon Aronian and Timur Rajapov, they played for 55 minutes in the last game, so they're given a little bit of a longer break. They ended up playing a draw, these two big rivals from Armenia and Azerbaijan. Well, Aronian now, American, or turning American, or switching to the American Federation, Chess Federation.
Yeah, and Aronian, he would have once got revenge. In the last major of the Meltwater Champions Chess Tour, he did get defeated by Rajapov in the final. So, yeah, maybe that's why that game went on so long. It did look like Aronian was almost winning, trying to press it home, but couldn't quite get there. Rajapov holding firm. Meanwhile, David Anton in this game with black just retreating the black knight. This isn't kind of a typical maneuver in most positions, but here that black knight wasn't doing too much. So black's knight is going to try and reroute itself to maybe a more central square later to just control, to have a bit more scope in the position. Magnus has to be careful. He has to reroute his rook now. The white rook might get trapped if he's not careful. But I think once white just brings his rook back into the game, white should be winning.
So Anish said when he was with us quite a few moves ago, 70% chance of Magnus win. What are you saying now, David?
I think it's over 90% now, because the problem is, after we see that last move, Black's king is forced to step back now. Actually, I think it's 100% chance of a Magnus win. Black's king is forced to step back onto a terrible square, and White's rook gives it a check. And now White's rook will just bring itself across, attacking one of Black's weak pawns. And not only is White a pawn up, but his rook is far more active than Black's rook. White's king is far more active than Black's king. And in rook and pawn endgames, that's the key. He does all activity.
So the endgame play here by Magnus, do you think now he's going to be super happy about this game, his play?
Yes, yeah, and he won't know that he was winning earlier. He will think that he found some kind of genius moves to get there, and he did actually in the end. He found some way to disorient David Anton, but in the endgame mastery did decide, and wow, David Anton just resigns.
It's finished. Magnus Carlsen ends up winning his last game of the day. Overall, fantastic first day for Magnus Carlsen, we must say. What do you think, Ivanka?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that he did lose a game, and so he will be feeling a little